let's talk pass game, Ryan.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about Notre Dame pass game. Number one, they're going to have to – these first two kind of go hand in hand. Number one is they have severe protection issues right now. And I'm not even talking about just guys getting beat. That's part of it. That's bad enough. But what the teams have just kind of – they know how to get to Notre Dame. They know how to beat Notre Dame's protection scheme right now. They know – I mean, I've never seen a team have more corner fires against them over a year and a half span than what we've seen from Notre Dame. It was all year last year. We saw it last year, and they never picked it up. They're doing it again this year. Marshall did it multiple times. Notre Dame didn't do anything to stop it. Nothing to stop it. And so that's got to get fixed. Teams know that the teams are killing Notre Dame with inside fires, right? Just killing them with inside fires. And it's not even like super complex stuff, Ryan. It's like this should be figured out. So they've got to address that before they can fix none of the other stuff we're going to talk about matters if that's not getting fixed. Because here's what's happening to Notre Dame's pass game right now. And it's because of a couple different things. Number one is, like, one of the things we have on here is like they're running too many stop routes, right? And the reason that's not as effective is because teams are just sitting at like 7 yards, 8 yards, and they're not going any further. And they're basically saying, you're not going to throw it deep. You're not going to have time to throw it deep. We're going to sit on all your quick stuff. And they're either taking it away by their pre-snap alignment or they're taking it away by their post-snap movement, Ryan. And that's why Notre Dame guys are just running into guys and they're not getting open. It's because of stuff like that. But that's because other teams know you can't protect to beat us down the field. That's one of the reasons they're doing that. And there's other reasons, but that's one of them. So if you don't fix your protection issues like now, especially against Justin Wilcox and Peter Sermon, who are very good defensive minds for Cal, then you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some problems. And it's not as simple as just, the backs need to pass pro better. There's times that's true, but this is a scheme problem that needs to get fixed now.
It's the biggest problem I have with the game, Brian, and this is on both sides of the ball. I feel like there's no communication with this team. Like, communication struggles. And what is pass protection? Pass protection is communication, whether that is movement up front or you're sliding to a certain spot or you're big on big block, like whatever it is, man. At the end of the day, it's about communication up front. And I feel like there's a lack of communication right now. And I mean, point blank period, the offense line needs to be better in one-on-one situations, pass blocking. Like they do. Like you need to be able to block one guy and do a sound job and give him 4 seconds. Like you have to do it. But I also think that there's a lack of communication. Like you talked about the fires, right? I mean, that play where we highlighted of Logan Diggs earlier, I think that was a double fire. Like they made it look like it was going to be a crossfire, and then they just literally double A-gap blitz, and that's what it was, man. Like it's nothing exotic.
That's a day one blitz install, Ryan.
Yep.
Day one blitz install.
That's like the first one
install pickup. Yes, it is
exactly. It's so frustrating, man, and you know it. And I mean, I just watched the Cal defense yesterday. They're going to do that same stuff because guess what, guys? Cal's linebackers are pretty decent football players. They're going to try to get them downhill too. And they're not
They have good
dumb.
safeties as well.
They do have good safeties, and teams aren't dumb. You just mentioned that Wilcox and Sermon are both smart defensive minds, right? They're going to see what Notre Dame's been struggling with, and they're going to do the same exact thing. Yeah. It's not rocket science.
See it hasn't been fixed. They're going to go back to last year and like, press corners, kill this team. Well, let's do that until they make us not do it. Hey, you know what? Just sit on the short stuff and then take it away. Yeah, they have no answers then.
And they're going to see. They're going to see last week, Tyler Buckner threw 2 interceptions. It was on the same exact thing. It was a stick route, and the guy just was sitting on it, and it was just over from there, right? And that's what they're going to see, man. And they're just going to be like, I don't care about, even though you have shown the ability to get on top of guys and to get behind them, I'm not worried about you until you actually hit one, right? Like, I'm not worried about it until it actually happens. So, again, they're going to condense everything. That's not just condensing the box. That's condensing the alignment of the defensive backs. It's condensing as far as what their situation and their responsibilities are. Notre Dame is going to have to unloosen things, right? And for them to do that, they need to make some plays in space. They need to push the ball a little bit. They need to create some explosive plays. That is the only way that and it's not even a Cal specific thing. This is a specific thing in general. The only way to make guys respect you and to back off a little bit and not condense is to show that you can create an explosive play. Until you can, they're not going to respect it.
Right. I think along the pass game lines, Ryan, too, we talked about RPOs earlier. There needs to be a little bit more. I hate using, there's two words I hate using because I feel like they are just used all the time blatantly as like by people that don't really understand what that means. And that's simplify and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how else to do it. Maybe more versatility, diversity. I don't know what word to use, but they need to have more in their RPO package. Right? Like, whereas right now
Diversity
it's
is a
like,
good word for it.
right, it's like
Diverse,
now
yeah.
screens and hitches and quick outs. Okay, those are fine, but teams are going to start taking those away, right?
Mhm.
You need to be willing to throw a field bomb. I'm sorry, as part of your RPO package. When you're on the left hash and you got one receiver outside and that only deep safety is right over the freaking ball, there's no other option against that press corner than to throw a deep ball outside. And if you don't have receivers that can win on there, then you need to find some that can.
And if Notre Dame
Right?
has done anything, Brian, they haven't hit a ton of those plays so far, but they've shown that they can win that way, right? Like they
The
can get on
receivers
top
are
of
winning
guys.
on those
Yeah,
routes. There's no
yeah,
question. They
they
got to
are.
hit
They're getting
it.
open.
They got to
Yep.
hit it. And that's another one of these is the very next issue was deep ball success.
Mm-hmm.
Like we showed this on Saturday. The play where if Tyler Buckner throws an accurate pass at the end of the second quarter, it's what was the score at the time? 9-7. It's 14-9 at halftime. It's 14-9. Notre Dame is up, I think it was 15-12.
Mm-hmm.
It was the play right after the 3rd and 3 false start. They got to put the game away. So Jarrett Patterson makes his mistake, but then they come back the next play and they're basically running all verts. We explained this on Sunday, and the corner squats and Braden Lindsey does what he's supposed to do and runs by. And if the quarterback sees it and throws it deep, it's 22-12 Notre Dame, and we're having a completely different conversation right now. Well, this show might be not different because we'd still talk about some of the issues, but the Saturday and Sunday shows would have definitely been different. Right?
People wouldn't feel like they're going 0-12 anymore.
Correct. Because they'd be 1-1 and still ranked in the top 25. Right.
Yes. And you can chalk it up to a bad week after playing Ohio State to the fourth quarter.
Right.
Yeah,
we would still be focused on some things that need to get fixed. But if you hit both of those throws, it's a blowout.
And it's 29 to whatever. Yeah,
right.
Right.
And so that's the thing is we saw the same thing against Ohio State. Braden Lindsey got open by 3 or 4 yards if it's a good pass. Like put it like this. It's if CJ Stroud is throwing that pass and he gets time, it's a touchdown. The one to Lorenzo Styles and the one to Braden Lindsey. Right now, Tyler needs to play better. Now it's up to Drew. You got to hit those throws because it only takes a couple of those hits for teams to say, I can't do that anymore. Sorry. Right? Yeah. Like these, and that's the thing is right now it's like I don't care if the receivers are running by us because the quarterbacks can't hit them. Lorenzo Styles also got deep on a post route on Saturday, and the ball got thrown behind him. Now I still think Lorenzo needs to make that play, but he shouldn't have to make that play. So it's on both of them. And that's another, maybe if you hit him truly over the top and in stride, he might outrun those guys. But I did think that one safety coming over the top might have had an angle to tackle him after about 40, 50-yard gain, I thought, maybe. But it's one of those things, Ryan, where if that guy undercuts that throw and he misses, it's a 70-yard touchdown. They've had so many opportunities for big plays where the receivers are getting open, which is why I'm confused by people saying, oh, they don't have speed. I'm like, are you watching the same thing I'm watching? Because I'm watching them run by Ohio. I mean, Matt Salerno ran by an Ohio State DB. And the reason it looked like a contested throw is because Tyler underthrew it and Salerno had to come back for the ball. But he beat the guy by a couple steps off the ball.
Yep.
Right? And so guys are getting open on the vertical stuff. Now, where they suck at getting open is on the intermediate and short stuff. That's where they have sucked at getting open. But they've gotten open on a lot of deep balls. Now, they can do better. The press releases need to get better, like we talked about. Push guys outside, slip inside if they're going to try to take your outside leverage away, things like that. But the fact is, there have been enough, like, I'm not talking like open by a step. I'm talking about like wide open because they smoked the dude opportunities in the first 2 games to be 2-0 and we're having a different conversation. Quarterback play's got to get better, and it's up to Tommy Rees, and the line's got to get better because on a couple of those hits, quarterback was getting hit in the face or getting sacked before he could throw the ball or when he was throwing the ball. And it's asking a lot of a sophomore quarterback making his first and second start to complete a 45-yard pass as he's getting smacked right in the face. That's asking a lot. I'm sorry. So protection's got to get better, but this isn't a scheme thing, Ryan. You're designing stuff to get guys open.
Right.
Freaking hit it. Right. That's the one thing that I can point to and say that's a player problem. You can't blame that on the coaches other than you say, okay, well, you didn't coach the guy up well enough to complete a deep ball. But I'm sorry. I'm blaming Tom Rees for several things. A quarterback not hitting a wide open post route at the end of the half when he knows that's what's going to the ball.
It's not a Tommy Rees thing. Yeah. Brian, that is what has been frustrating though for everyone, right? It's the fact that, well, it's been frustrating for me, I should rephrase, right? Because everybody wants to just throw the coaches under the bus. And like,
Sure.
I get it, man.
Yeah,
because like,
they deserve
again,
plenty of blame. Yeah.
I've been so critical of Tommy Rees over the last 2 weeks. Like I have, like he needs to be better. Like there's no doubt about it. But the point blank to it is that coaches aren't helping players, and players are also not helping coaches. When the coaches are putting them in position, they're also not making plays. Like at the end of the day, both sides are not holding up their end of the bargain. That's the point blank to it, right? And it needs to be better. It has to, because I also am getting tired of the speed thing, right? I mean, you have legitimately in your starting lineup as running back and receivers, you have a 4-3 guy, you have a 4-4 flat guy, and you have a 4-4 something guy at wide receiver. So please stop with the speed stuff, man. Please stop with it. It doesn't. It's dumb. It's dumb. It is actually dumb because you can turn on that Marshall film again.
And we've seen those guys do that in the past, Ryan.
Yeah.
So did Braden Lindsey? This is the one I wrote in the article the other day.
Braden Lindsey got slow, apparently.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Did Lorenzo Styles go from smoking a guy that started at Ohio State last week in a bowl game against the pass defense and ranked top 10 nationally in the Big 12?
Yeah.
Did he all of a sudden get slow after having 100 yards and 8 catches against Oklahoma State, and just smoked the guy on a post route for a touchdown? Right? Did Braden Lindsey all of a sudden get slow? No. Now, are they looking slow at other times? Yes. And that's the next point of talk about is that the route running has to have more purpose and urgency. We've talked about that already. We talked about that in the post-game show on Sunday night, or not the post-game show, but the upon further review on Sunday night. You can tell the difference on what's coming by the release of the receiver. That's not a good thing. And this is why I said in the show on Sunday, everything needs to look like a go route, because one of the biggest mistakes that receivers make is, now there are times when you are purposely coming off slow because you're trying to juke them and say, hey, I'm coming off. You don't know where I'm going. Bam, I'm breaking out on a quick 5-yard outcut. That's a different deal. But unless you're doing something like that, your release off of 4 or 5 step release on anything being run past 7 yards needs to look like you're running a go route. And it is so obvious with the Notre Dame receivers outside and inside when they're running something that's going to require a cut or a stop within 10 to 12 yards. It is so obvious. And when I mean cut, I'm not talking like a post cut. I'm talking like an out cut, an option, an in, something like that. It is so easy to diagnose that. And that's what DBs are taught to do.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I learned early on as a receivers coach while talking with other DB coaches, because that's who I spent time with, was talking to DB coaches, not receiver coaches. What are the things you look for? And one of the first things I look for is I'm looking for your release. And so there's a couple things you look for. Number one, are you coming off the line with your feet choppy? Because most DBs don't look at a guy's eyes. They're looking at his hips and his feet. That's what you're looking at, right? Because you can't go somewhere unless your hips and feet take you there. My eyes can look in all types of different directions, but my feet can only go in one direction. That's it. My hips can only go in one direction. My eyes can go all types of places. You're reading the hips and the feet. Yep. And so if I see you get tall and I see your feet get choppy, or one of those two things, I know you're trying to set me up for some kind of stop or some kind of cut, right? But if you come off with a forward lean and you are coming with then I think, okay, this guy's threatening me. He wants to run by me. And so what I always taught was that needs to be your language on a hitch route and a go route, because I want to get that DB sinking. So I don't want to catch a hitch and then the guy is, tackling me to 6-yard gain. I want that guy to flip his hips. I make my cut at 6 to 7, and I'm right there, and that guy's still running. You see that happen at Bama all the time.
Yep.
You used to see that happen at Clemson all the time, because those guys will come off a purpose and then, bam, quickly hitch up, sink their hips. Bam, I'm catching the ball right now because that guy's still running by him. Like, there is not, because you can tell if they're running a short route, a stop route, or a deep route just by their release. That stuff has to get fixed right now. Right now. I know Chancey doesn't teach that, Ryan. It's one of those things where he's still trying to deprogram from the past, but it's his job to deprogram. You can blame Dell for putting him in the situation, but you're now going into game 3. It's time to start seeing those things be different. So there needs to be a greater sense of urgency off the ball on every single route, unless it is a designed because like sometimes you'll run a cross route, Ryan, which we need to see more of there too. Like we've talked about, more mesh, more high lows. I want to see more high lows. Some of those under routes are going to be slower developing because you want to let guys clear out and things like that. And then you kind of come and then you go. That's different. But if you're running any kind of vertical release, I don't care if you're stopping at 5 yards or you're running a go route, it needs to look the same until you're ready to stop. Because as soon as you come up, whether it's off the ball or at the top end, that DB knows he's stopping, right? And the only time you should come up is if I'm running a double move. And by the way, for the love of God, can we please get a double move?
I haven't seen one.
Although you could call it,
seen one?
But here's the thing. You could call it, but you can't protect it right now.
Sure.
Which goes back to point numero uno.
Well, and this is a position where you can have an advantage, I think, down the stretch, Brian. Like the next 10 games, is there a great corner left on the sheet? I mean,
Garrett Williams is a good player.
Garrett Williams is a good football player, sure, but like outside
Tony Grimes,
of that,
but I mean that defense is terrible.
That's not great.
I mean,
it's not great right now.
The kid from Stanford's pretty good.
Caillou Blue Kelly's
but none of those guys are elite. None of those guys are, like Derek Stingley Jr. when he's healthy. None of those guys are, elite players. They're good players, but they're not guys that could. But they've got one. Yeah, one. Notre Dame's should have multiple receivers.
Yeah. And I saw someone in the chat, I forget who said it, Brian, but like I agree with him completely. It's not the narrative is that Notre Dame lacks speed at receiver, but the real actuality is that they lack skill at receiver right now because they're not. It's not being developed properly, right? Correct. And I'm not blaming Chancey Stuckey on that because again, to your point, these guys have been taught a lot of bad habits, right? So I'm not blaming them after 2 games. If it's something where it like starts to
if we're heading to BYU like it doesn't fix, and we're still having the same problems, then yes, it now becomes like I kind of look at it like this. I give you 3 games to get that stuff where I should start seeing progress. Improvement. And that's my issue with the O-line and the receiving core. It's not that I know that Chancey teaches something different, but it's not coming out on Saturdays. And at the end of the day, guys, it doesn't matter if you look great in practice. It matters that you play that way on Saturday. So yes, I am not coming down on Chancey Stuckey yet.
Exactly.
I am not coming out on Harry Heastand yet, but we're getting into that territory where if we don't start seeing some improvement, then I am coming down on you. There's no doubt because you're making guys with speed look slower on certain stuff, and that's it's not okay. That's not okay.
Agree. Need to see progress at the end of the day. It's something where when you're a new coach, again, there's going to be a little bit of a grace period because you have to reteach a lot of stuff or deprogram and start from the bottom up. But I think that was a difficult part of this past game was that you didn't see progress really, right? Like it seemed like the same, worse in certain instances. So it's got to get better.
So for me, Ryan, I need to see more high-low stuff is conceptually things I want to see. I want to see more things where you're forcing them to chase across. I want to see more vertical stretch stuff. That is what a high-low essentially is. It's a vertical stretch. You're stretching a team vertically mixed in with the horizontal stuff that they're running. The horizontal stuff they're running is fine. It's just needs to be mixed in with other things. They need to start pushing the depths of the horizontal routes deeper. They're stopping. Like what they're doing now is if a guy's standing there at 9 yards, they just collide into him and try to outposition him like it's basketball. No, run through his outside shoulder. Get him to flip his hips, then break back, and then get open. Those are technical things that need to get fixed. But then also you need more creativity, more diversity in the RPO game, and then enhance the screen game. The perimeter screen game, enhance the perimeter screen game, enhance the running back screen game. It all needs to get better and used more effectively. And I think that'll set up. And then also off of that, let me get in a little pump, throw downfield off of that a little bit as well. So that's where you can use Michael Mayer as a decoy. I'm running a little now screen look to him because they're going to play that aggressively. I'm going to maybe run it early and throw it to him. Next time I come back, pump, and then throw it down the field. Those are the things that I want to see schematically.
Because I felt like last game, Brian, we saw a couple just like bubble screens pretty early on in that game off RPO action. And then again, like I just felt like they went away from it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it works.
It's like once they got off the script, it's like, okay, we're not running RPOs anymore.
Because I think Lorenzo had a decent little gain off of it, and then he actually might have had 2 different decent gains out of it. But there was he definitely had like 1 for 8, 1 for like 12-ish, something like that in that ballpark, and then it just went away. And I was happy in that first drive, man. I was like, even though they stalled and they didn't score, I was like, oh, but at least we saw some stuff that we wanted to see, right? And then it just kind of went away during the rest of the game.
Yep.